Sim Racing Setup Philosophy Simplified, how I've applied the tripod philosophy to mid-engine cars. In this particular video I've chosen the Alfa Romeo 4C, particularly because it's modeled in a way that the changes in the settings really affect the car a lot, whereas in the previous video I showed the Genesis, and the settings, changing the settings doesn't seem to affect the understeer too much. The car always performs very similarly no matter what the settings seem to be. I don't know why that is in that particular car, but anyway, I've chosen this car because I like the way it handles. Still using comfort soft settings because for my particular reference as track days, it produces pretty good times for the tires that people would have at a track day. With this particular car, it becomes really unstable with a extremely soft front roll stiffness. So I have the anti-roll set to 3, and to counteract the understeer that this produces, I've opened up the initial torque. And because the engine is in the rear, there's more weight on the rear tires, so the tripoding effect it's not as strong as it would be in a front engine car, or with a car with a more forward weight distribution. And so I need to open up the initial torque to allow the car to steer mid-corner. And then my usual acceleration sensitivity, that's just a little bit more than 50% lock because of the tripoding effect. At maximum load, when you get on the power, it prevents the inside wheel from spinning up. And then braking sensitivity, this is just what seems to work with this particular car. And then of course I've done all the gearing changes that I normally do in Gran Turismo. And that's about it. Everything's my usual philosophy. Front stiff compression and soft compression in the rear, and then as close to critical damping on the rebound, both front and rear. Camber settings are just based off of tire width. I think these are 235s, both front and rear. Different size, different diameter wheels in the front and the rear, but the same width. So 2.8 seems to work well with skinnier tires. I don't go much more than 3 degrees of camber, of negative camber. In some simulators, around 5 degrees, depending on how much roll stiffness you have in the car, it seems to work. But the 5 is really excessive. 3 seems to do well enough anyway. And the usual tow settings. On to driving the car. So the car really likes to steer on throttle. And I have it set up this way because of, whoa, there it goes on the throttle steer. A little bit sloppy driving. I have it tuned this way because I'm using a controller. I need the car to be stable. There's a lot of torque on this car, like low-end torque, or mid-range torque I should say. So I have to be very delicate on throttle, even though it has low horsepower. It's only 240 horsepower or so. I'm going to try to do a cleaner lap. So opening up the initial torque in this car on the differential It does help the car steer mid-corner better, but it becomes very unstable at high speeds, around particularly the last turn on this track onto the main front straight. And here in that overcresting fast turn, very unstable. I could go faster here. Oh. Still not driving very well. Anyway, that's this car. This car is more oversteery because it has lower horsepower. It's easier to control the oversteer. I'm going to choose a different car. The Porsche 911. I forgot what year. I'll get into it when I choose the car. It's a slower lap, but it doesn't matter. The point is that it performs the way I like by my racing, or what's called tuning philosophy. Alright, different car. And I'll show you the fastest time I've got with that car. So up here, I've gotten a 24.6 with these particular tires, the Comfort Soft. Wait, wrong button. Race settings, garage. So the 2001 911 GT3. I've chosen this car particularly because its horsepower range. There's another Porsche I could choose, but it has more horsepower. I'm trying to show a different range of horsepowers. So this one has 354. It's much more easier to control than the 400 horsepower one. Let's see. So with this car, it understeers a little bit more mid corner, so I have a softer roll stiffness in the front. Notice it's a anti-roll bar of 1 stiffness, and I have no idea what the reference of 1 to 10 is. With this at 1, it could still be stiffer than with this at 10. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it would be, or I should say a thicker anti-roll bar. I don't know about stiffer. Anyway, 195. I would like a little bit less wobbliness with a stiffer front spring, but the car tends to push on throttle too much, and this is as stiff as I can get it with this rear stiffness. I could have a little bit stiffer rear end to counteract the understeer, but it would become a little bit too unstable on throttle. So this would be I concluded with these settings to work well for me. Usual damping settings, and then of course because of the understeer, I've opened up the initial torque to be around 42, and braking sensitivity. It doesn't really matter that much on this particular car. I don't like the car breaking loose on the brakes too much, but actually in this particular game, I don't know about other games, having two open differential settings on the brakes causes the tire, one side of the tire to lock up, like the inside tire usually, obviously, because it's unloaded, and having more lock on the brakes, or I should say the right amount of lock, differential lock on the brakes, it works best, whatever that right amount of lock setting is. And I haven't specifically tuned this. This probably could be more open. I found somewhere around 40 to be good. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to change it. So I was tuning the 4GT and the 4C. The 4GT and the Alpha 4C. And I found that 40 works well with those cars. So I'm going to try that right now. I haven't tried it out yet. So the front end is a little bit more wobbly than the other cars. I don't remember where the braking zone is. So this is really stable mid-corner, and the only way I can achieve a little bit more instability mid-corner, or I should say understeer. Oops, I oversped the turn there. The only way I can achieve more or less stability mid-corner, more rotation, is to either open up the initial torque, supposed to be in third gear, open up the initial torque and or stiffen the rear spring. And I mentioned that earlier when I was talking about the settings, that the stiffer rear spring causes the car to be a little bit too unstable for me on throttle. If I was using my wheel, I could probably control the car with a little bit more unstable on throttle. Too fast. So 24.6. Let's take a look at what my fastest time was. So the 911 was a 23.5 was my fastest time with this car with these settings. How that, whatever your reference is, it's a pretty quick time for me. Let's go on to the Ford GT over here. So with this particular car, high horsepower mid-engine car, I have to use traction control, and I have to use it around 2, and particularly with the traction control set to 2, it performs better with understeer, and which it's kind of strange why I would have the rear stiffness so high, is that I need the rear stiffness to be higher for the mid corner performance, and then I rely on the traction control to keep the car stable. And so actually exiting the corner straighter out of the turn is faster with the traction control than it is to get on throttle as early as possible and kind of scrub the car through the corner. And same thing, fairly open initial torque, open braking sensitivity, usual acceleration sensitivity. And that's about it. Onto the drive. So notice you can hear the traction control kicking in around the turns. Oh, we need a brake. Like the short shift there. Or you can hear the traction control turn on through this section. So it's actually a lot faster to keep the car going in a straight line than it is to try and steer while on throttle. Alright, 21.555. I'll do another lap. I'll do 2 more laps because I kind of slowed down too much here. See if I can go faster. I got into the 20s. Sorry if there's a loud exhaust noise from a car outside. Can't really, oh, didn't brake. I was distracted talking about sounds outside my window. Okay, definitely have to do another lap. So I don't know if the car would come with these particular tires. I don't know what the friction coefficient of Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s would be. But the braking zones on these tires for this car are really long compared to the other cars, just because it reaches much higher top speeds. Short shift here. Slow down for this turn so I can get on power. Brake around 100. At this little line there on the road, slow down. Brake hard for this turn, and missed apex. Whoops, not supposed to do that. Probably not going to get a 20, get into the 20s. I think I'm supposed to just hit the rev limiter in third there. Notice how I'm fighting the traction control out the exits. It's a lot faster to just keep the car straight. Alright, 21.4, at least I got a faster time. Anyway, the fastest time I got for this car was a 20.3. And that's about it. I'm going to review the settings. With the traction control, specifically these high horsepower cars where you're running traction control, you can make the car oversteer mid-corner with a stiff rear roll center. And then the car would, if it didn't have traction control, oversteer a lot on throttle. but because of the traction control, it prevents the wheels from spinning up, and so you actually get understeer because the traction control is preventing the rear end from sliding. And so to get the most speed out of the exit with traction control on is to keep a straight line exit, or as I should say, as a minimum radius or maximum radius, the largest radius you can on the exits, so that the traction control doesn't kick in too strong. And like I said, this would oversteer a lot on throttle. Even if you balanced it with if I had my pedals on, I could my pedals and the steering wheel, that is, I could probably drive without traction control with this car, but and it'd be really oversteering, but I'd be able to control it. And that's about it. Till the next one.